The Whitmore estate sat atop Pacific Heights like a crown jewel, its limestone facade gleaming in the San Francisco morning sun. Behind its iron gates and manicured hedges lived one of America's wealthiest families, yet inside those marble halls, silence reigned heavier than any fortune could lift. Marcus Whitmore had built his empire from nothing, a tech visionary who'd revolutionized cloud computing before his 30th birthday. Now, at 42, his net worth exceeded $12 billion. He owned properties on 3 continents, employed hundreds of staff, and commanded respect in boardrooms worldwide. But all his wealth couldn't fix the one thing that mattered most: his daughter's blindness. 8-year-old Lily Whitmore had never seen her father's face, never witnessed a sunset painting the bay orange and gold, never caught her own reflection in a mirror. Born prematurely at 26 weeks, she'd suffered from retinopathy of prematurity, a condition where abnormal blood vessels develop in the retina. Despite countless surgeries and consultations with the world's leading ophthalmologists, the diagnosis remained unchanged: irreversible blindness. The mansion staff moved through their duties with practiced efficiency, speaking in hushed tones around Lily as though blindness were something fragile that might shatter if disturbed by normal conversation. They guided her everywhere, anticipated her every need, and treated her like a porcelain doll that might break at any moment. Lily's world had become a gilded cage where everyone saw her disability but never really saw her. That was about to change. Rosa Mendoza stood before the estate's service entrance, clutching her single suitcase and the employment letter that had changed her life. At 34, she'd spent 15 years cleaning homes in San Francisco, sending money back to her family in Guatemala, and dreaming of something more stable. This live-in position at the Whitmore estate offered exactly that, plus medical benefits and a salary 3 times what she'd been earning. Mrs. Patricia Chen, the head housekeeper, greeted Rosa with a firm handshake and an even firmer set of rules. "The family values privacy above all else," Patricia explained as she led Rosa through the servants' corridors. "Mr. Whitmore is rarely home. Business keeps him traveling constantly. Mrs. Whitmore passed away 4 years ago, cancer, which leaves Miss Lily." Patricia's voice softened slightly when she mentioned the child. "The girl is blind, completely. She has a tutor, a physical therapist, and around-the-clock care. Your duties will primarily involve the guest wing and common areas, but you may occasionally be asked to assist with Lily. If you are, remember, she's fragile. Always announce yourself before approaching. Never move furniture or leave objects in walkways. Guide her everywhere. Is that clear?" Rosa nodded, but something in the instructions troubled her. She'd grown up in a small village where her cousin Miguel had been blind since birth. He'd climbed trees, played soccer by sound, and eventually become a teacher. Nobody had treated him like he was made of glass. The first time Rosa saw Lily, the child was sitting in the sunroom, perfectly still in a velvet chair, hands folded in her lap. Her long auburn hair had been braided with mechanical precision. She wore a pristine white dress, better suited for a photograph than for an 8-year-old's afternoon. Her clouded gray eyes stared at nothing. A tablet sat on the table beside her, playing an audiobook about butterflies. But Lily wasn't listening. She was somewhere else entirely, trapped in whatever thoughts occupied children who'd learned too young that the world treated them as problems to be managed. "Miss Lily," Patricia said in that particular tone adults use when they're being overly gentle, "this is Rosa. She's joined our staff. Say hello, dear." "Hello," Lily whispered, barely audible. Rosa felt her heart twist. This wasn't a child. This was a little ghost haunting her own life. Over the following weeks, Rosa observed everything. She noticed how the staff spoke about Lily, rather than to her, how they made decisions for her without asking her preference, how her schedule was rigid and controlled: breakfast at 7, lessons at 8, therapy at 10, lunch at noon, quiet time at 1, more lessons at 3, dinner at 6, bed at 8, every single day. No variation, no spontaneity, no childhood. She watched Marcus Whitmore return from a business trip, spend 15 minutes with his daughter, and leave again. During that visit, he asked Lily about her lessons but didn't actually listen to her answers. He smoothed her hair, told her to be good, and disappeared into his study to prepare for the next trip. The man was drowning in guilt and didn't know how to swim back to shore. Rosa also noticed something else, something everyone else seemed to miss. Lily was incredibly observant. It started with small things. Rosa was dusting the sunroom when she accidentally knocked a book from the side table. It hit the hardwood floor with a distinctive thump. "That was Pride and Prejudice," Lily said quietly. "The leather-bound edition. It has a heavier spine than the others." Rosa paused, book in hand. "How did you know?" "Each book sounds different when it falls. That one makes a deep sound. Jane Eyre sounds sharper. Wuthering Heights sounds hollow." Rosa set down her dustcloth and sat on the ottoman near Lily's chair. Not too close, but close enough for conversation. "You've memorized them by sound?" "I've memorized everything by sound," Lily said. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "Patricia's shoes squeak on the third step from the bottom. James, the butler, drinks coffee at exactly 3:17 every afternoon. I can hear him pour it in the kitchen. The fountain in the east garden has a crack in the second tier, so the water sounds different on Tuesdays. When they clean it." Rosa leaned forward, fascinated. "What else do you hear?" For the first time, Lily turned her face toward Rosa's voice, and something sparked behind those clouded eyes. Someone was finally asking about what she could do instead of what she couldn't. "Birds. 17 different species visit our gardens. I know them all by their calls. The Anna's hummingbird comes at dawn. The mockingbird owns the afternoon. Sometimes a Cooper's hawk hunts near the oak tree. You can hear the songbirds go silent when she arrives." "That's incredible." Lily's smile faded. "Nobody thinks so. They just say it's nice and change the subject." Rosa spent the next several days paying attention to what Lily paid attention to. She realized the child wasn't just hearing sounds. She was reading the entire mansion like a book written in audio. Lily knew when her father was upset because his footsteps became heavier. She knew when the cook was making her favorite meal by the specific rhythm of knife work. She could identify every person in the house within 3 footsteps. But here was what struck Rosa most. Lily moved through spaces with increasing confidence when she thought no one was watching. She'd navigate from her room to the bathroom without trailing her hand along the wall. She'd reach for objects on tables without fumbling. She'd turn her head toward sounds with pinpoint accuracy. Rosa remembered her cousin Miguel explaining how he'd learned to echolocate, using tongue clicks and listening to how sound bounced off objects to understand his surroundings. She'd watched him navigate unfamiliar buildings using this skill. One afternoon, Rosa was cleaning near the hallway when she heard soft clicking sounds. She peeked around the corner and saw Lily standing alone, making gentle clicking noises with her tongue and tilting her head, listening intently. The child was teaching herself to see through sound. Rosa's breath caught. Lily wasn't disabled. She was developing extraordinary abilities that everyone was too busy pitying her to notice. The staff's overprotection wasn't helping her, it was crippling her. That night, Rosa did something she probably shouldn't have. She went to the library and used the computer to research blindness, echolocation, and sensory development in children. What she learned made her furious and heartbroken in equal measure. Blind children who were encouraged to explore, move independently, and develop compensatory skills thrived. They lived full, active lives. But children who were overprotected, constantly assisted, and treated as helpless often struggled with learned helplessness, a psychological state where they stopped trying to do things independently because they had been taught they couldn't. Lily was being smothered by good intentions. Rosa knew she was overstepping her position, but she couldn't stay silent. She requested a meeting with Patricia Chen. "I've noticed something about Miss Lily," Rosa began carefully. "She's developing remarkable skills, but I think our approach might be limiting her potential." Patricia's expression hardened. "Rosa, you're new here. You don't understand the situation. The child is blind, completely blind. We have a responsibility to keep her safe. But she's capable of so much more than we're allowing her to do. I've seen her navigate rooms independently. She's teaching herself echolocation. She's incredibly intelligent and aware. Maybe if we gave her more freedom." "Absolutely not." Patricia's voice was ice. "Mr. Whitmore has been very clear about his expectations. His daughter's safety is paramount. I will not have new staff questioning protocols established by medical professionals and family preferences. You're here to clean, Rosa, not to play therapist. Am I understood?" Rosa nodded, but she didn't agree. She couldn't. She began making small changes anyway, knowing she was risking her job. When she cleaned Lily's room and the child was present, Rosa would describe what she was doing and where objects were located. She'd ask Lily's opinions about arrangements. She'd leave safe obstacles, a cushion, a basket, and let Lily discover them rather than warning her about everything. "There's a footstool about 3 feet in front of you," she'd say. "What do you hear when you click toward it?" Lily would make her clicking sounds and smile when she detected it. "It sounds solid, close to the ground. Want to find it yourself?" The first time Lily reached out independently and found an object Rosa had described, the child's face lit up with something that had been missing for too long: pride. Their secret lessons continued. Rosa taught Lily how her cousin Miguel had learned to move through the world. She brought in different textured objects, smooth stones, rough bark, silk scarves, sandpaper, and helped Lily develop her tactile awareness. She encouraged Lily to identify people by their unique sounds, the particular rhythm of their walk, their breathing patterns, their unconscious habits. "Mr. James sighs before he opens doors," Lily observed one day, delighted, "and he smells like the lemon polish he uses on the banister." Rosa laughed. "You're becoming an expert on everyone in this house." "I always was," Lily said quietly, "but nobody asked before." The breakthrough came 3 weeks after Rosa's arrival. She was walking with Lily in the garden, against protocol, but Patricia was supervising a delivery at the front of the house. Instead of gripping Lily's hand and steering her along the path, Rosa walked beside her, describing the environment. "The fountain is 12 steps ahead, stone path the whole way, rose bushes on both sides about 4 feet back. There's a bee working the flowers to your right. Can you hear it?" Lily stopped, tilted her head, and smiled. "Yes, it's moving from flower to flower. There's a pattern to it. The fountain's edge is smooth marble. If you want to find it yourself, click and listen. I'm right here if you need me." Lily stood still for a long moment. Then she made her clicking sound and began walking forward, slowly but steadily. Her hands weren't outstretched in fear. Her steps weren't tentative shuffles. She was reading the space through sound and moving through it with growing confidence. She reached the fountain without assistance, placed her hands on the marble edge, and laughed, a sound of pure joy that Rosa realized she'd never heard from the child before. "I did it! Rosa, I did it myself!" "You did, sweetheart. You absolutely did." That's when Rosa heard the sharp intake of breath behind them. She turned to find Marcus Whitmore standing at the garden entrance, home early from his trip, watching his daughter stand alone at the fountain with an expression Rosa couldn't quite read. Marcus Whitmore's voice was controlled but furious. "Miss Mendoza, my study, now." Rosa's stomach dropped. She started to reach for Lily, but Marcus shook his head curtly. "Patricia will handle Lily. You come with me." In the study, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling shelves of books Marcus probably never read and awards he probably never looked at, Rosa stood before the massive mahogany desk while the billionaire stared at her with eyes that had negotiated billion-dollar deals and crushed corporate rivals. "Would you like to explain," he said with dangerous quiet, "why my daughter was wandering the garden unassisted, why you countermanded explicit instructions about her care, why you've taken it upon yourself to experiment with my child's safety?" Rosa knew she should apologize, back down, and save her job. But when she opened her mouth, different words came out. "Your daughter isn't broken, Mr. Whitmore. She's extraordinary. And everyone in this house is so busy protecting her from everything that they're actually protecting her from living." Marcus's jaw tightened. "You've been here less than a month. I've spent 8 years consulting with the best medical professionals in the world. I think I know what my daughter needs." "With respect, sir, I don't think you do. When's the last time you really talked to her? Not at her, not around her, but with her." "How dare you? She can identify 17 species of birds by their calls. She's memorized the acoustic signature of every person in this house. She's teaching herself echolocation. Do you even know what that is? She's developing abilities that most people can't even imagine, and everyone treats her like she's helpless. She is blind, Miss Mendoza, completely blind. That's not going to change." "I know, but blindness doesn't mean inability. I had a cousin who was blind. He lived a full, independent life. He traveled, worked, married, raised children. The difference between him and Lily isn't their eyes. It's that his family believed in him, and yours has wrapped her in bubble wrap." Marcus stood, his face flushed with anger. "You have no Idea what you're talking about. You didn't watch my wife die while our premature baby fought for life in the NICU. You didn't sit through surgery after surgery, hoping each one would restore her sight. You didn't see the hope fade from my daughter's face every time a new treatment failed. I promised her mother I would keep Lily safe. That's what I'm doing. You're keeping her isolated, Rosa said, her own voice rising. There's a difference between safe and smothered. That little girl is desperate for someone to see her as capable, as smart, as able to learn and grow. Instead, everyone just sees her blindness. Get out. Mr. Whitmore. I said get out. You're fired. Pack your things and leave my property immediately. Rosa felt tears prick her eyes, but she held Marcus's gaze. Fine. But before I go, answer me this. What kind of life are you giving her? One where she sits in chairs all day, perfectly still, perfectly safe, and perfectly miserable? Or one where she gets to be a child who makes mistakes and learns and grows and maybe scrapes a knee sometimes? She could get hurt. She's already hurt, Mr. Whitmore, just not in the way you're looking for. Rosa turned to leave, then paused at the door. Your daughter told me she memorized how everyone in this house sounds. Want to know what she said about you? She said your footsteps always sound sad. An 8-year-old girl can hear her father's grief from 3 rooms away. Maybe it's time to let both of you heal. Rosa packed her single suitcase in the small staff room. She'd barely had time to make her own. Patricia had already prepared her final paycheck, lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval. None of the other staff met her eyes as she walked toward the service entrance. She was almost to the door when she heard rapid footsteps on the marble floor. Wait! Please wait! Rosa turned to see Lily rushing down the hallway, not carefully, not tentatively, but running with her hands outstretched, clicking softly to navigate, moving faster than Rosa had ever seen her move. Lily, careful, Patricia started. I'm fine, Lily called back, breathless. She reached Rosa and grabbed her hand. You can't leave. Please don't leave. Rosa knelt down, her vision blurring with tears. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Your father doesn't want me here anymore. Because of me. Because you let me walk by myself. No, honey, because I didn't follow the rules. But those rules weren't fair to you. Lily's clouded eyes were wet. Everyone treats me like I'm made of glass. Everyone except you. You're the only one who thinks I can do things. You can do anything you set your mind to, Lily. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Then teach me. Please, stay and teach me. I can't. I don't work here anymore. Then I'll come with you. Rosa's heart broke. You can't do that either, sweet girl. This is your home. It's a prison, Lily whispered. A pretty prison where nobody lets me do anything or be anything except blind. Marcus Whitmore's voice came from the hallway behind them. Lily, go to your room. No. Silence fell like a guillotine. Rosa suspected it was the first time Lily had defied her father in years. Lily, now. Why are you sending Rosa away? Because she let me walk by myself. Because she talked to me like I'm a real person instead of a decoration? Because for the first time in my whole life, someone thought I could do something instead of nothing? Marcus strode forward, but when he reached for Lily's shoulder, she stepped back, keeping her hand in Rosa's. Young lady, you will go to your room right now. I heard what you said in the study, Lily said, her voice shaking but determined. The door was open and you were loud. You told Rosa that you promised Mom you'd keep me safe. But Dad, is this what Mom would have wanted? For me to sit still my whole life? For you to be so sad all the time that I can hear it in your footsteps? Marcus froze. Lily, I remember Mom. Not what she looked like. I never knew that. But I remember her voice. She used to read me stories about brave princesses and girls who had adventures. She told me I could be anything I wanted. And then she died. And you stopped believing that. You stopped believing in me. That's not true. Yes, it is. Tears streamed down Lily's face. You love me, but you don't think I can do anything. Rosa's been here 3 weeks, and she's shown me more about how to live in the world than anyone else has in my whole life. She doesn't see my blindness first. She sees me first. Marcus looked stricken, his composure crumbling. He sank onto the nearby settee, suddenly looking much older than 42. I don't know how to do this, he whispered. I don't know how to be your father without your mother. She was so strong, so fearless. I'm just terrified. Every moment of every day, I'm terrified that something will happen to you. That I'll fail you the way I failed her." Lily let go of Rosa's hand and moved toward her father, clicking softly to locate him. She found his knee, then climbed onto the settee beside him, reaching up to touch his face with her small hands, reading his expression through her fingertips. "You didn't fail, Mom, and you haven't failed me. But Dad, I can't live my whole life being afraid. If you love me, you have to let me try things, even if I fall sometimes." Marcus pulled his daughter into his arms, and for the first time, Rosa saw the grief he'd been carrying like Atlas bearing the weight of the world. He was crying, really crying, in a way that suggested he'd been holding it back for 4 years. "I miss her so much," he said into Lily's hair, "and you're so much like her. Your mother never let anything stop her. She climbed mountains, started charities, changed the world, and I've been keeping you in a cage." "Kind of," Lily said gently, "but we can change that, right?" Marcus looked up at Rosa, who was still standing by the door, unsure of her place in this intimate family moment. "Miss Mendoza," he said, voice hoarse, "it seems I owe you an apology, and a significant one at that." Rosa stayed. More than that, she became Lily's companion, advocate, and teacher, a role that evolved beyond the bounds of traditional employment into something more like family. Marcus, to his credit, didn't just apologize. He changed. He cleared his schedule to be home more. He sat with Rosa for hours, listening to her explain her cousin Miguel's experience, watching videos of blind individuals living independently, reading research about childhood development and neuroplasticity. "I've been so focused on what Lily lost that I never looked for what she gained," he admitted one evening, "or what she could gain if we let her." He brought in new consultants, not to fix Lily, but to help her thrive. Orientation and mobility specialists taught her to use a white cane with confidence. They worked on echolocation techniques, turning her self-taught clicks into a refined skill. An occupational therapist helped her learn Braille and adaptive technologies. A life skills coach worked with her on everything from cooking to navigating public spaces. But the most important change was simpler. They started treating Lily like a capable child who happened to be blind, rather than a blind child who was incapable. The mansion transformed. Rosa and Marcus removed the excessive padding and barriers. They created tactile landmarks and taught Lily to navigate using environmental cues. They established consistent furniture placement while encouraging Lily to explore new spaces. "The kitchen island is 12 steps from the refrigerator," Rosa would say. "There's a row of canisters on the counter, flour, sugar, rice, pasta. Each has a different texture label." Lily would click her way across the kitchen, reading the space through sound and touch, measuring ingredients, helping cook meals. She spilled things. She made mistakes. She laughed at herself and tried again. They ventured outside the estate. Marcus took Lily to parks where she climbed on playground equipment while he resisted every helicopter parent instinct and let her figure things out. Rosa took her to the Children's Museum, where Lily explored exhibits through touch and sound and asked a million questions. They enrolled her in a school for the blind, where she met other children who navigated the world without sight. For the first time, Lily had friends who understood her experience, who didn't treat her blindness as a tragedy, but as one characteristic among many. "Dad," she said breathlessly after her first week of school, "I met a girl named Sophie who's blind like me, and she rides horses, real horses. Can I try horseback riding?" Marcus glanced at Rosa, who smiled encouragingly. He took a deep breath and said the word that terrified him. "Yes." Lily's world expanded from that silent mansion into a life full of texture, sound, friendship, and joy. She joined an adaptive swimming team. She learned to play the piano, her heightened auditory processing making her a natural musician. She started rock climbing at a gym that specialized in adaptive sports. She still couldn't see. That hadn't changed and never would, but she was no longer defined by what she couldn't do. Marcus watched his daughter climb a rock wall one Saturday afternoon, using tactile holds and verbal guidance from her instructor, and felt his breath catch in his throat. "She's fearless," he said to Rosa, who'd become his confidant over the months, just like her mother. "She always was," Rosa replied. "She just needed someone to give her the chance to show it." "I almost fired you for that." "You did fire me for that." Marcus laughed, something he'd been doing more often lately. "Worst decision I almost made." "Not almost. You did make it. I was literally walking out the door. Then I'm grateful for my stubborn daughter who refused to let you leave. He paused, watching Lily reach the top of the wall and ring the victory bell, her face radiant with achievement. I thought protecting her from everything was love. I didn't realize I was protecting her from life itself. 2 years later, 10-year-old Lily Whitmore stood on stage at the National Federation of the Blind's Youth Conference, her white cane folded beside her, speaking to an audience of 300 people about her journey from isolation to independence. I used to think being blind made me broken, she said, her voice clear and confident. Everyone around me seemed to think so too. They whispered around me. They made all my decisions for me. They kept me safe in ways that made me small. In the audience, Marcus sat between Rosa and Patricia Chen, who'd become one of Lily's biggest supporters once she'd understood the difference between helping and hovering. Then someone new came into my life who saw things differently. She didn't see my blindness first. She saw me first. She noticed that I had developed my own ways of understanding the world. Instead of treating those as weird compensations for a tragic disability, she treated them as skills worth developing. Lily smiled toward the section where she knew her father and Rosa were sitting, even though she couldn't see them. Rosa taught me that blindness isn't my identity. It's one characteristic among many. Yes, I can't see, but I can hear things most people miss. I can read Braille faster than my dad reads print. I can navigate complex spaces using echolocation. I rock climb, swim, ride horses, play piano, and annoy my father by beating him at audio-described video games. The audience laughed. Marcus wiped his eyes, not even pretending he wasn't crying. My dad learned something too. He learned that loving someone doesn't mean protecting them from everything. It means giving them the tools and confidence to handle whatever comes. He went from being terrified to let me walk to the fountain in our garden to supporting me when I said I wanted to try tandem skydiving last month. Marcus groaned audibly, and the audience laughed again. He hadn't actually agreed to the skydiving yet, but Lily was working on him. What I want other kids who are blind to know is this: you are not broken. You are not limited. You are not defined by what sighted people can do that you can't. You have your own strengths, your own abilities, your own ways of experiencing this world. Find the people who see that. And to the parents here, trust your kids. They're more capable than your fear lets you imagine. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Lily stood at the podium, hands clasped, head tilted slightly as she listened to the thunderous applause, a smile of pure joy on her face. Backstage afterward, Marcus hugged his daughter tightly. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. Your mother would be too." "I know," Lily said. "I've been talking to her." Marcus pulled back, surprised. "What do you mean?" "I talk to her sometimes, in my head. I tell her about my adventures and ask her what she thinks. And I know she's proud because she didn't raise someone who sits still and stays safe. She raised someone who lives." Marcus looked at Rosa over Lily's head, his expression full of gratitude. "Thank you," he mouthed silently. Rosa smiled and shook her head. She hadn't saved Lily. She'd simply been the first person willing to see what was already there, a remarkable child who'd been waiting for someone to notice her capabilities instead of her disability. 15-year-old Lily Whitmore navigated San Francisco's busy sidewalks with her white cane, earbuds playing music, completely at ease in the urban environment. She was meeting friends at a cafe, riding the bus by herself, something she'd fought hard to earn the right to do. Her phone buzzed with a text-to-speech message from Rosa. "Remember, dinner at the house tonight. I'm making your favorite." Rosa had long since moved beyond her role as a maid. She was family now, a godmother in all but legal title, living in the renovated guest house on the estate, working as an advocate for blind children through a foundation Marcus had started in his late wife's name. Her expertise, born from love and observation rather than academic degrees, had helped dozens of families shift from a medical model of disability to a social model, from asking, "What's wrong with this child?" to "What barriers are we creating that prevent this child from thriving?" Lily texted back with voice dictation. "Will Dad actually be home, or is this another business trip surprise?" "He's home, and he says he has something to ask you." Curious, Lily finished her journey to the cafe, where her friends were already debating the merits of the latest audio-described streaming series. Sophie, her best friend from school, was arguing passionately for the quality of the sound design. The spatial audio in episode 6 was incredible, Sophie insisted. You could tell exactly where everyone was positioned in the room. Not all audio description is that good. Lily grinned, settling into the conversation, ordering her usual drink by memory, living the ordinary teenage life that had once seemed impossible. That evening, the Whitmore mansion felt more like a home than it had in years. The formal dining room had been abandoned in favor of the cozy breakfast nook, where Marcus, Lily, and Rosa shared meals like a family rather than a billionaire and his employees. "So," Marcus said after they'd finished eating Rosa's famous enchiladas, "I have a question for both of you." Gina. Lily tilted her head, listening to her father's tone for clues. "Sounds serious." "It is, actually. The foundation has been growing faster than we anticipated. We've helped over 200 families in the past 3 years, but there's so much more we could do. I've been thinking about expanding, creating a nationwide program, training programs for teachers and medical professionals, advocacy work, maybe even changing some laws around accessibility and disability rights." "That sounds amazing," Rosa said. "What's the question?" Marcus took a breath. "I want to do this full time. Step back from the tech company, let my partners run operations, and dedicate myself to this work. But I won't do it unless you both think it's a good idea. This foundation was born from our experience, our family. It should reflect all of us." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. "Dad, 4 years ago, you were so afraid of my blindness that you couldn't see anything else. Now you want to dedicate your life to helping other families see what you learned. I think that's exactly what Mom would want." "Rosa?" Marcus looked at the woman who'd changed everything by seeing what no one else had seen. "I think," Rosa said carefully, "that what started as a job cleaning houses has turned into the most important work I'll ever do. If you're asking whether I'm in for the long haul, the answer is yes." Marcus smiled, relief evident on his face. "There's one more thing. Lily, you're old enough now that I want to ask, would you want to be involved? Not as a symbol or a poster child, but as a real voice in the Foundation's direction? You'd have actual input in programs and policies. Your experiences matter. Your perspective matters." Lily was silent, and Marcus started to worry he'd pushed too hard. Then she spoke, her voice thick with emotion. "When I was 8, I thought the best I could hope for was to be safe and protected. Now I'm meeting with city planners about accessible public transit. I'm giving speeches. I'm living. If I can help even one kid move from that first place to this second place, then yes. Absolutely yes." Rosa reached across the table and squeezed Lily's hand. Marcus covered both their hands with his own. "Then it's settled," he said. "The Sarah Whitmore Foundation for Blind Excellence, named after a woman who never let anything stop her, directed by a family who learned that same lesson the hard way." Later that night, after Rosa had gone home and Lily was supposedly doing homework in her room, Marcus found his daughter on the balcony of her bedroom, face turned toward the sounds of the city below. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked, joining her. "I was just thinking about that day in the garden," Lily said, "when I walked to the fountain by myself for the first time. Do you remember? I remember being terrified. I remember feeling free." Lily turned toward her father. "Dad, can I ask you something? Do you still wish I could see?" Marcus considered the question carefully. It was a trap, and they both knew it. The wrong answer would hurt. "I wish you never had to face the challenges that come with blindness," he said slowly. "I wish the world was better designed for everyone, regardless of ability. But do I wish you were someone different than who you are? No, never. You're extraordinary, Lily, not despite your blindness or because of it, but because you're you." "Good answer," Lily said with a grin. "You've gotten better at this dad thing." "I had good teachers." He paused. "Thank you for not letting Rosa leave that day. Thank you for being brave enough to fight for what you needed, even when I was too scared to see it." "We saved each other," Lily said simply. "You saved me by finally letting me go. I saved you by helping you move past losing Mom, and Rosa saved both of us by seeing what everyone else missed." Far below them, the San Francisco lights blazed, invisible to Lily, but mapped in her mind by sound and memory and the extraordinary way she'd learned to navigate the world. She couldn't see them, but she didn't need to. She had her own way of experiencing beauty. The city hummed with life, traffic patterns she could predict, construction sounds she could identify, the distant foghorn that meant the marine layer was rolling in. Each sound painted a picture more complex than any photograph. "What are you hearing right now?" Marcus asked, genuinely curious about his daughter's experience. Lily tilted her head, listening with the concentration that came naturally to her now. "A cable car 3 blocks away. You can hear the bell and the cable mechanism. Someone's having a party 2 houses down, bass rhythm around 120 beats per minute, probably dancing. There's a dog barking northeast, big breed by the depth of the sound, probably a German shepherd, and wind chimes in Mrs. Patterson's garden. She must have finally put them up after talking about it all summer." Marcus listened, trying to hear what Lily heard. He caught maybe half of it. His daughter lived in a richer acoustic world than he'd ever imagined. "Your mother used to say that everyone experiences the world differently," he said quietly. "She'd say that's what makes life beautiful. All these different perspectives combining to create something larger than any single viewpoint. I think she'd love how you see or hear the world." "I think so too." Lily reached out and found her father's arm, resting her head against his shoulder. "Dad?" "Yeah? Thank you for changing. I know it was scary. Scariest thing I've ever done. Scarier than any business deal or investor pitch." He wrapped his arm around her. "But you know what I learned? The real danger wasn't letting you try things and possibly fall. The real danger was keeping you so safe that you never learned to catch yourself." They stood together in comfortable silence, father and daughter, no longer separated by grief and fear, connected instead by hard-won understanding and unconditional love. Inside the house, Rosa watched them through the window, a smile on her face. She thought about that first day she'd arrived at the Whitmore estate, how Lily had seemed more ghost than girl, how Marcus had been drowning in protective anxiety, how everyone had been so focused on blindness that they'd forgotten about the child. It hadn't been one dramatic moment that changed everything. It had been accumulation, small acts of belief, tiny increments of trust, consistent reinforcement that Lily was capable and worthy and deserving of a full life. Rosa hadn't performed a miracle. She'd simply seen what was already there and refused to look away. Her phone buzzed with a message from her sister in Guatemala. "How's work?" Rosa smiled and typed back, "Changed my life. Changed several lives, actually." Because that was the truth of it. She'd come to San Francisco looking for stable employment and better pay. Instead, she'd found purpose. She discovered that sometimes the most important work isn't the work you're hired to do. It's the work you choose to do because nobody else is doing it. She'd seen what no one else saw. Not a blind child who needed fixing, but an extraordinary human being who needed believing in. 1 year later, the Sarah Whitmore Foundation for Blind Excellence opened its headquarters in a renovated building in downtown San Francisco. The space had been designed with input from blind architects, accessibility experts, and most importantly, blind children and adults who would actually use it. Tactile pathways guided visitors through the space. Braille signage accompanied every visual sign. The acoustics had been carefully engineered to minimize confusing echoes while preserving the environmental sounds that helped blind visitors navigate. Different areas had distinct ambient sounds, flooring textures, and even carefully chosen scents to create a multi-sensory map. It wasn't a building designed for blind people by sighted people who thought they knew best. It was a building designed in collaboration with the blind community, revolutionary in its understanding that accessibility meant more than compliance with minimum standards. The opening ceremony drew national media attention. Marcus Whitmore, tech billionaire turned disability rights advocate, was a compelling story, but he insisted that the spotlight shine elsewhere. Lily took the stage first, now 16, and poised beyond her years. "My name is Lily Whitmore, and I'm blind," she began. "I'm starting with that fact because it's important. Not because it defines me, but because it shapes my experience. Being blind isn't a tragedy, it's a reality. And like any reality, it comes with challenges and gifts." She paused, clicking softly, a habit she'd made her trademark in public speaking, a reminder to her audience that she navigated their world differently. "This foundation exists because someone looked at me and saw possibility instead of limitation. Her name is Rosa Mendoza. And she's the reason I'm standing here today, instead of sitting silently in a mansion, being kept safe from life itself." Rosa, seated in the front row, felt her eyes burn with tears. She'd never sought recognition, never wanted credit. But Lily had insisted. Rosa didn't have a degree in special education or orientation and mobility. She didn't have letters after her name or publications in academic journals. What she had was a cousin who was blind, an open mind, and the courage to question whether the way everyone was treating me was actually helping me. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. The audience laughed, but there was truth in the humor. This foundation is built on a simple principle. Blind people are capable. We have different methods, adaptive tools, and alternative techniques. We navigate the world in ways sighted people might not understand immediately. But we are not broken. We are not lesser. We are not tragedies waiting to be cured. Lily's voice strengthened, filled with the passion of someone who'd lived both sides of this story. We're students and teachers, athletes and artists, scientists and storytellers. We're people with dreams and ambitions and the right to pursue them. What we need isn't pity or protection. We need access, opportunity, and people who believe in our capability. She gestured toward the building around them. This foundation will provide resources, training, and advocacy. We'll teach orientation and mobility skills, life skills, and adaptive technology. We'll train educators and parents and medical professionals to see ability alongside disability. We'll advocate for accessible design, inclusive education, and employment opportunities. But most importantly, Lily said, her voice softening, we'll tell blind children what I wish someone had told me when I was 8 years old. You are enough, exactly as you are. You don't need to be fixed or cured or made more normal. You need to be supported, believed in, and given the tools to build the life you want. The applause was thunderous. Lily smiled and stepped back, her white cane in one hand, reaching with the other for the next speaker. Rosa walked onto the stage, her heart pounding. Public speaking had never been her strength, but she'd prepared remarks with Lily's help. "My name is Rosa Mendoza," she said, her accent still present after years in the United States. "I'm the Director of Family Services for this foundation, which is a fancy title for someone who had no business questioning a billionaire's parenting choices." The audience laughed. Marcus, standing in the wings, grinned. "I grew up in a small village in Guatemala where we didn't have the resources we have here. When my cousin Miguel was born blind, there were no specialists, no special schools, no adaptive technology. He learned to navigate the world because his family believed he could, and the community included him. Nobody treated him like he was fragile. They treated him like he was Miguel, a kid who happened to be blind." Rosa looked at Lily, who was listening intently from her seat on stage. "When I met Lily, I saw a child who had every resource money could buy except the one that mattered most: belief. Everyone was so focused on keeping her safe that nobody asked what she wanted. Nobody noticed what she was teaching herself. Nobody saw her extraordinary abilities because they couldn't look past her disability. What I learned from Lily and her father is that love and fear can look very similar. Both make you want to protect someone, but love gives them wings, while fear builds cages. Love says, "I believe you can do this and I'll help you learn." Fear says, "I'll do it for you so you never have to try." Rosa's voice grew stronger. This foundation exists to help families move from fear to love, to help them see capability instead of limitation, to show them that their blind children can have full, independent, extraordinary lives, not in spite of their blindness, but as whole people who happen to navigate the world differently. She paused, then added, "And to the blind children and adults here today, you don't need anyone's permission to be capable. You already are. What you deserve is a world that recognizes that and removes the barriers that stand in your way. That's the world we're going to build." The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Rosa stepped back, overwhelmed, and felt Lily's hand find hers. "You did great," Lily whispered. "We did great," Rosa corrected. "All of us." Marcus took the stage last, but his remarks were brief. He talked about his late wife's fearlessness, about his own journey from paralyzing fear to active advocacy, and about the privilege of learning from his daughter. "I'm often asked what moment changed everything," Marcus said. "People expect a dramatic story. Instead, it was something simple. My daughter asking me if I still wish she could see. The question I'd been terrified of for 8 years. He looked at Lily. My answer was honest. I don't wish she were anyone other than who she is, and who she is happens to be blind. That's one fact among many about an exceptional human being who's taught me more about courage, resilience, and living authentically than any business mentor ever did. Marcus gestured to the building around them. This foundation is our way of paying forward the lesson Rosa taught us. See the person first. Everything else is details we can work with. After the ceremony, the reception buzzed with energy. Blind students from local schools explored the building with delight, discovering the thoughtful design features. Parents of blind children networked with each other, many in tears as they realized they weren't alone in their questions and fears. Sophie, Lily's best friend, clicked her way over to where Lily stood talking with a journalist. "This place is amazing," Sophie said. "The acoustic design is perfect. I can hear everything without getting overwhelmed." "Right?" Lily grinned. They used sound-absorbing panels in conversation areas, but kept natural echoes in the hallways for navigation. There's a whole science to it. The journalist, scribbling notes, asked, "What do you hope people take away from this foundation?" Lily considered the question. "I hope blind people find resources and community. I hope parents find support and realistic hope. But mostly, I hope sighted people learn that disability isn't something to fear or pity. It's just a different way of being human. Once you understand that, everything else follows." Across the room, Marcus and Rosa stood together, watching the scene unfold. "We did it," Marcus said quietly. "From that disaster in the garden to this, I still can't quite believe it." "I can," Rosa said. "Lily was always destined for this. She just needed the chance. She needed you. She needed all of us," Rosa smiled. "But Marcus, what happens now? The foundation is launched. Lily's thriving. You've transformed your entire life's focus. Where do we go from here?" Marcus looked at the crowded room, blind students confidently navigating a space designed for them, parents crying tears of relief and hope, advocates and educators sharing best practices. "We keep going," he said. "We expand to other cities. We change laws. We shift perspectives. We build a world where no parent has to go through what I went through, where fear gives way to understanding, and every blind child knows they're capable from day one." He turned to Rosa. "And we make sure that people like you, people who see clearly even without credentials or titles, have platforms to share what you know. The academic experts are important, but sometimes the most important wisdom comes from lived experience and open hearts." Rosa felt her throat tighten with emotion. 8 years ago, she'd been scrubbing floors and sending money home, hoping for something more. Now she was directing family services at a national foundation, speaking at conferences and changing lives. "Thank you," she said simply, "for listening when you could have just fired me and moved on. Thank you for speaking up when you could have just kept quiet and kept your job." Marcus smiled. "I think we both learned something. The most important truths often come from unexpected places." As evening fell over San Francisco, the Whitmore Foundation building glowed with warm light, a beacon of possibility in a world that too often told blind people what they couldn't do instead of celebrating what they could. Inside, Lily stood at a window with Sophie, both girls facing outward, even though neither could see the view. "Can you hear the street musicians down on the corner?" Sophie asked. "Violin and guitar," Lily confirmed. "They're playing that song from the movie, the one with the dragon. Not just any dragon, the one who learned to fly differently after losing part of his tail." They both smiled at the parallel. So many stories about overcoming disability, yet so few about simply living with it, accepting it as one part of a full, complex life. "You know what's funny?" Lily said. "When I was little, I thought being blind was the most important thing about me, like it was this huge thing that overshadowed everything else. Now it's just one fact among many. I'm blind. I'm also a pianist, a rock climber, a terrible cook, a good friend, a passionate advocate, and someone who laughs way too loud at bad jokes." "Same," Sophie agreed. "Blindness is what we deal with, not who we are." "Exactly." Lily linked her arm through Sophie's. "Come on, I think they're setting up the adaptive technology demonstrations. I want to try that new refreshable braille display." They clicked their way across the room together, two teenage girls navigating their world with confidence and joy. their white canes tapping out a rhythm that spoke of independence and possibility. Rosa watched them go, her heart full. This was what she'd hoped for all those years ago when she'd first dared to question the status quo. Not that Lily would be fixed or cured, but that she'd be free to become fully herself. Marcus appeared at her shoulder. "Ready to go home?" "In a minute. I just want to watch a bit longer." They stood together in comfortable silence, witnessing the fruit of their labor, not the building or the programs or the publicity, but the children moving through the space with confidence, the parents breathing easier, the community forming around shared experience and mutual support. This was what victory looked like. Not a miracle cure or a tragic inspiration, but ordinary people living extraordinary lives supported by a community that saw ability alongside disability. Rosa thought about that first day at the Whitmore mansion when she'd seen a lonely child sitting silently in a sunroom, treated like porcelain by people who thought they were helping. She thought about the risk she'd taken in speaking up, the fear she'd felt when Marcus had fired her, the determination in Lily's voice when she'd said, "You can't leave." Sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply see what others have overlooked, not because you're, special or gifted, but because you're willing to look beyond the obvious and ask better questions. What Rosa had seen wasn't a blind child who needed fixing. She'd seen a capable, intelligent, extraordinary little girl who needed someone to believe in her. Everything else had flowed from that single shift in perspective. As they finally prepared to leave, Lily found them near the door. "Heading out?" she asked. "Unless you need us to stay," Marcus said. "I'm good. Sophie's mom is giving me a ride home later. We're going to hang out here a while longer." Marcus hesitated, old instincts warring with new understanding. Letting his daughter stay without him, trusting other parents to look after her, believing she could handle herself. It still didn't come naturally, but he'd learned to push through the fear. "Text when you're on your way home," he said. "I will. Love you, Dad. Love you, Rosa." "Love you too, sweetheart," they said in unison. Lily grinned and disappeared back into the crowd, completely at ease in a room full of strangers, ready for whatever adventure came next. Marcus and Rosa walked out into the San Francisco evening, the city lights beginning to twinkle in the gathering dusk. "She's going to change the world," Rosa said. "She already has," Marcus replied. "She changed mine." They stood on the sidewalk for a moment, looking back at the foundation building, the physical manifestation of a journey that had begun with a billionaire's grief, a maid's courage, and a little girl's desperate need to be seen for who she really was. The sign above the entrance read, "Sarah Whitmore Foundation for Blind Excellence, Seeing Ability in Every Person." It was a promise and a mission. It was the lesson learned the hard way. It was the future they were building, one family at a time, one shifted perspective at a time. And it had all started because a new maid saw what no one else did, not a disability to be pitied, but a child to be celebrated.